Streaming live via the Internet. Welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver Internet via fiber optic, wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. Chat live with us weekly via ispradio.com every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And now a brief word from our sponsors. Link Technologies, providing ISP consulting, support, and hardware for wireless ISPs. TowerCoverage.com, providing online RF coverage maps. Mimosa Networks, providing high-density, high-bandwidth radio products. Advanced LLC, providing retail and wholesale advanced communication services by matching providers with your bandwidth needs. And by Sitel, providing reliability in surge suppression. And now your host for ISP Radio, Steve Grabiel and Dennis Burgett.
Welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. I'm your host, Steve Grabiel, broadcasting from Moriarty, New Mexico, and I've got my show producer and co-host, Dennis Burgess, broadcasting the show live from in Missouri, right? Yep.
Yeah, St. Louis,
Missouri, yes.
There you go.
And so, wow, I've been gone, it seems like, for a month, and I think that's right. So where the hell was I, if you care? Can you imagine this? I took a 2-week vacation or longer out of country. Can any of you ISPs out there, owners of ISPs, even imagine such? I took a leap of faith and left my business in the hands of my guys, and it survived. I'm so pleased that it was able to do that, which leads me to this. All you guys listening out there, maybe you should take some time, consider it. When I came back so recharged to do so much work that I feel re-energized, and it's just an amazing thing what taking some time off will do for you. And as a testament to the guys that ran the show here while I was gone, they did such a fine job that when I came back, I didn't have a pile of paperwork. I didn't feel overwhelmed when I got back. The business ran the way it should, and I come back into a position of not being overwhelmed with too much to do. I can slip right back in where I left off, which is really a sense of peace for me. And if you guys have the ability, I highly suggest you go out there and take a vacation. When was the last time you took a vacation, Dennis?
Oh, man, we try to do these little bitty vacations. Half the trade shows are vacations if you call them that, but you never know. You have to sit there and try to get out. I actually took a week off prior to my baby Miles coming in, so I kind of had a little time there. But then, of course, you're at home and you have the kid, running around and all that kind of good stuff, and you have to feed him and all that stuff. So I don't know if it was exactly a vacation or not. Yeah,
well, it was time away from work. Did you come back feeling a little recharged?
Oh yeah,
your child must be a prodigy, being born and running around already.
Yeah. Well, he kicks so much. I'm surprised he hasn't just started, hadn't stood up and started running as much as he wants to move his legs.
Right. So, not having any children myself, how's it like being a new dad?
It's not too terribly complicated. They really only do a few things. They either want to be changed, they either want to sleep, or they either want to or eat. So it's not rocket science. How's that?
All at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that's what the wife's for, right?
I hope she doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, well.
So, Dennis, being gone, you did some interviews with some people that I think were really fruitful, and also you just told me that we have a call-in number.
Yeah. So today we have a new call-in number. This call-in number we can, of course, use at any given time. It is our own little special number. And, of course, I have to look up that number because I completely forgot it already. But that number is area code 636-707-0074. And I was hoping maybe today we could take a few phone calls, see if we can answer anybody's questions that they may have on the show, live, of course.
Right. You'd kind of be our guinea pig. So if you're out there listening, give that phone call a try, and let's bridge you in and talk about what interests you. That'd be real interesting to try this new component of our radio station here.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how well it works. I don't know how well it will work, but it should work. We've used the phone before, so we'll try her out. Anyway,
I know you've been buried with a lot of work and helping people out all over the globe, but any tidbits of news that you've had through the past week that is worthy of mentioning?
Well, you always have to think about what's going on in our industry. Obviously, WISPA has been doing quite a bit. For those of you that don't know, nominations for the WISPA Board of Directors is actually already closed. That actually occurred over the past 2 weeks or so. We do have a number of good nominees, and I believe the nomination committee will be finishing up their work. What is it? Probably next week. And we'll have all of the people that are running and accepted to run for the new Board of Directors, or the outgoing ones anyway, coming up on the 19th, which is next Friday. So we will definitely have people in there to run, and we'll have some campaigning, and we'll have some elections and all that. So make sure, if you are a WISPA member, make sure you keep tales on what's going on with the elections. We do have a number of board members that are going to be they are not being or not running again for the board due to either business or other reasons. That does happen, of course.
And yourself, are you going to run again?
Actually, I do not have to run. So for those of you that don't know how WISPA does things, per the bylaws, what we have is we have 9 board members. And the board members are elected in 2-year terms, and they are staggered. So some board members will be up for renewal or up for nomination this year, and some will not. This year we have 5 positions that either existing board members can become nominated and then rerun for re-election, or somebody else can run for that board position as well. And it all depends on, of course, the elections. Just because they were a board member doesn't mean that they will be a board member afterwards, obviously. But we have 5 board members that are up for renewal. I believe we have 2 of those have reapplied to be reelected or to go through the election process. So we're actually going to lose what it looks like is 3 existing board members due to various reasons, again, personal and company, things like that, are not going to be running for the board again, so they will not be reelected. So we'll have at least 3 new board members next month whenever elections are complete. And this is a really good thing, because the WISPA Board of Directors, just like any other company, has to have a little diversity. And this is actually a really good thing whenever you look at your board, if you have a business that has partners and has a board of directors, having a good diversity is a very good thing, because that allows you to be more agile and look at things from different points of view. And for a big organization or our organization such as WISPA, it's very good to get fresh ideals and fresh thoughts into the organization. And as everybody knows, as a WISPA member, you can, of course, participate on any of the particular committees, things like that. But as a board of director, you get to influence the high-level decisions and influence the way the organization runs. So very good. It does require some time. I mean, it's not like you're going to do nothing. How's that? So we definitely should see some great action this year, and I hope that all the board members that are outgoing, I wish them well. We have a great group of nominees so far, and again on the 19th we'll be announcing who has been nominated and accepted those nominations, as well as who will be up for the election. So, and then we have, I think, like 2 or 4 weeks of campaigning that they can do, and then the elections, for anybody that doesn't know, let's see here, the elections actually will start, the voting period will start on, what is this, July? This looks like July. Yep, July, is that? That's not July. Yeah, it is. July 13th will be when the voting period starts, and we'll actually have 2 weeks to vote. And at the end of July, July 28th, we will have the election results. Also, there's a sister organization to WISPA called WECAT. The WECAT is for the emergency operations, for in the event of a hurricane or tornado, disaster operations, to help operators get back up and running as quickly as possible during emergencies. The WECAT will be running their elections concurrently to the WISPA elections, and I believe WISPA even helps them out with getting the election software and all that kind of good stuff. So those are definitely the best way of going. You have two different organizations. They are not they're kind of sister organizations, but they do have separate board of directors and separate accounts. They're completely separate organizations as far as on paper. They may share a board member in some cases, but not all the time. So, of course, all these things are just options for you as well. For WISPA. As far as ISP radio is concerned, we actually do have a really great, I have to look up the exact name here, but Richard Jiminson, I can't pronounce today. Richard is actually going to be from Aaron, and we're actually going to talk to him next week. So we're actually going to have a person from Aaron on the line June 17th. We're going to be talking about the IPv4 depletion and IPv6 deployment that is currently going on. Very good information. I think anybody that is interested in either getting IPs from Aaron and or looking at IPv6 should really be looking at it. Just so everybody knows, currently Aaron has 0.13% percent available IPv4 space available. So very, very, very little. This actually comes down to currently they have about 470/24s available total. So
wow.
Very, very few. It's definitely been going down, down, down. As everybody knows, it is a little difficult to get there, but as long as you follow the procedures and have a usage for it, you should be perfectly fine on that. And we do see a lot more IPv6 deployment out there going on, and I really hope that everybody is looking at that, because here in the near future, when I say near future, it's very possible by the end of the year, the possibility of you getting V4 space is going to be is going to be one of two things. One, nil from Aaron, because Aaron won't have any more. And then the next thing would be transfers or leasing. And what we've seen is a lot more leasing. And just to give you an ideal where the pricing is on this, is you're looking at about $2,800 a year for a single/24. And that's not yours. That is just leased from somebody. So take how many blocks, if I did that based on us, it'd be 22, based on our current organization, it'd be over $22,000 a year in IPv4 costs. And I think right now we pay about $2,000 a year for the Aaron IPs. So definitely everybody should be really looking at V6. What's going to happen as soon as this space, I guess we'll get off on this tangent here.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, what we do here. When Aaron runs out of V4, there's going to be this little scramble of trying to find IP space. And what's going to happen for the next, say, a year? It could be less, could be a little more, give or take 50%, let's say. What's going to happen for about a year is we're going to see leasing companies that have IP space, and we're going to see sales of IP space, and we're going to see people leasing some IPv space. But I have the IPv4 space that's out there available for lease, while we don't know exactly how much that is, I don't think it's going to carry us much more than, again, I say a year, give or take 50%. Okay? If it extends out a little more, great. But I don't think it's going to extend out that much. And we're going to talk with the people from Aaron next week, and I'm sure we're going to definitely they probably have definitely better ideals of how much the leasing is actually going to help people or not. But eventually you're not going to be able to get it. So now you're going to be brought down to either one of two things. One, IPv6 stack only, which is a beautiful thing, or you're going to do a dual stack system and you're going to just NAT everybody out v4. And then you have to go through all of the v4 IPv4 address space issues that you do get with with NATed. So now you have NAT. So now do you need to do some type of huge carrier grade NAT system or something like that to help things? You're definitely going to get a lot more issues with IPs being blocked because of spam. That'd be one thing. Gamers not being able to connect. That's another big one, because they really rely on things like UPnP for NAT to work, and whenever you start doing carrier grade NAT, UPnP is just not there. It's just not designed for that. So all of a sudden we're going to have lots of issues that's going to start popping up, and people are going to really have to start deploying the v6 as well. It's just going to have to happen.
Well, that show is going to be really good for the standpoint of talking to the people who run the show there. But also from a technical standpoint, you had brought this up a while ago where you talked about you had helped a company deploy v6 across the board, and it was pretty simple for them to do. And I'm going to throw out the question for you to mull over, but I'm looking at it as they're not handing out IPv4 as readily, and I'm sure they're handing out IPv6 like candy. And what, from a technical standpoint next week, just think about this. How easy is it for me to go to not even bother with IPv4 and just go into IPv6 and just bypass that? Because I'm a double natted network, and realizing I need to go to all public, but I might as well just bypass trying to get v4 space and just jump right into 6.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a number of different ways of doing it, and the problem you have in many cases is that you still have legacy gear that needs to access the IPv4 network.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing. There is some 6-to-4 translation systems out there, but we don't have anything that's super cost effective in the small ISP space anyway. And I'm not saying that you're small, I'm just saying for most people we don't have anything that's cost effective yet.
Right. So
most likely what you're going to do is you're going to still run your IPv4, but then you're going to really focus on how can I get v6 out to my customer, how to get that out there, to get your own IP space, and that way you can deploy v6 quickly and effectively and have that connectivity. I mean, I sit here and I look at how much v6 traffic we run versus v4, and obviously it's a big difference. But I'm just going to use an example in my case. You go to Google and YouTube; those are all v6 enabled sites. Facebook is all going to be v6 enabled. I believe even Netflix is v6 enabled. Yeah, it is. I don't know about the streams, but I know the website is v6 enabled. There's lots and lots of mainstream sites that are v6 enabled, and because of that, we have the apparent ability to use native only v6. Now, is that really going to happen? No, you're probably going to run dual stack for a while. Okay, and since you've been running dual stack, I don't think there's any reason for you to. Well, let me phrase it. Since you've been running v4, there's definitely not a reason for you to discard what you already have. You just need to add v6 on top of it, and simply tell people that, hey, you're gonna there's no more air and space. It is what it is. We can't get it. Nobody's getting it, and this is going to be the nature of the beast. And you're going to lose some customers, and they're going to go to some place that has some v6 or v4 space available. But it is it is what you're going to have to do.
Right.
And if you don't have the IP space, then you don't have the IP space.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to digress a little bit and talk about a little bit about WISPA. This show is not supported by WISPA at all. It's supported by our advertisers and Dennis and my time in putting it together. But we are definite supporters of WISPA. Dennis is a board member currently, and like he's mentioned. And just for the listeners' edification and understanding, Dennis, you've been on the board a couple times. What's it like being on the board, and time commitment? How are board meetings done? Probably via Skype or what have you. And what does it all entail by being a board member? And I agree with you. personally, I've been on a few boards myself, and my first job, I feel, when I'm on any board is to find my replacement. Because in business, churn is bad. You know, we don't like to lose customers and then gain customers. We like to just gain customers. But churn on a board of directors, that's always good for, like what Dennis said, changing up and getting different viewpoints from the stuff that can be stagnant. But Dennis, if you could go into, you mentioned that there's a time commitment, and it's it's not just a title; it's actual work. What in your opinion entails that work and the time commitment, and how does it really work?
Yeah, well, that really depends on the level of commitment that you're willing to make, because there are a number of committees that actually take up a lot more time versus other committees. So I'll use a couple of examples. So as an average board member, we meet once a month. We do go to meeting type stuff. So it's online, so it's not too horrible. We've had some meetings that are an hour and a half, and we've had some meetings that are 6 hours. So it varies depending on how busy and how much discussion and how much things are going on. What's going on in the industry. So that's once a month. So just block out a day a month. So there's 12 days a year. Next, you really have the various emails, the various listservs that you're going to participate on. And while this is not a whole lot of time in the grand scheme of things, it's definitely something that you kind of watch and make sure that things, as they progress on mailing lists and listservs, etc., are going the way, not necessarily you want them to, but are going. You have your opportunity to put in your information.
Being addressed.
Yeah, you're addressing it, or maybe you're not addressing it. Maybe that doesn't interest you, and it's not your responsibility. So you're being informed, but you're not necessarily participating in the active discussion. Then we get over to the committees, and this is really where a lot of the work goes. And Elizabeth has been the committee chair for the legislative. Alex Phillips has been the committee chair for the FCC. Those are definitely two active ones. We also have our promotions committee, which Forbes Mercy is the chairperson of that currently. And these people, especially those three people, I'll just toss them out. Those three people are probably the busiest, because every time there is FCC action, Alex has to be involved. Every time there's legislative action, Elizabeth is involved. Every time that there is something going on that needs a press release, advertisements with the WISPA membership, things like that, all goes through the promotions committee. So because of that, there's a significantly more time that is required to just simply maintain. And it may not be planned time either. It may be, hey, this came up today at the FCC, what are we going to do about it? And now there's a committee discussion on it. Now the FCC committee chair needs to make recommendations to the board to take action, or chooses to take action based on his or her budget. So there is definitely things out there that can definitely take up more time, more of your time in that aspect. But usually you as a member, as a board member, have said, hey, I want to be on the legislative committee, and I wish to chair that. Only board members can chair the committees. I want to be on the FCC committee, and because of that, you are making a conscious effort. It's not like, hey, Dennis, we want you on the FCC committee, you're going to chair it, even though you have no interest in it. Might be an example. It's not like that. You are going to come on because of that. This year I was chosen and kind of volunteered to be on the nomination committee and to be the nomination committee chair. And that's perfectly fine. There's not a problem with it. In all honesty, I probably spent maybe 30 or 40 hours total in it, but this is over several months of time. So there is a commitment to that. The very last commitment that you would have as a board member is the shows. And this year, without having a executive director, the board is actually being called upon a little bit more to help out. We have our big shows, the WISPA Palooza in Vegas coming up in October. we have the WISP America show. You figure a week-long commitment for the WISP America show and a 2-week commitment or so to the WISPAPalooza show. And depending on what your job is, some board members are going to be in their booths with their companies at various times. In
like
some,
you?
Yeah, well, in some aspects, but it all depends on what you volunteered for. And what occurs, like on the big trade shows, is our director of operations, Trina, if I remember names here today, she will say, hey, I need someone to help out do this, because she's busy making sure all the vendors are happy, making sure the show is going on without a hitch. And there's usually volunteers all around for that. And, of course, the board usually meets at those shows as well for an in-person board meeting as well. If there is a reason to, there is lobbied off or sectioned off 2 in-person board meetings that are not at trade shows as well, even though we have not done those typically. So there is a time commitment to it, but you are helping the industry. You're bringing in new life, new ideals, new thoughts, and new ways of doing things. And because of that, the board members are very valuable people. But all the day-to-day work, I mean, it's not like you're going to sit there and on a daily basis do a lot of work. It is not a full-time job by any means. We have employees that do that. Our director of operations and et cetera, that handle the day-to-day, hey, I wish to sign up, or hey, I need to find out some information about WISPA, things like that. So it is a task to do. It is a good task. It is good volunteer time, and it comes back to our industry. For me anyway, I want to be involved. I want to be involved in what's going on with our industry. I want to know how our industry is changing and what can we do to help the industry as a whole. Because whenever we look at myself and my business, helping the industry helps me in my business as well. So it's not a conflict of interest for me at all. Matter of fact, it helps my business. And yes, it takes up some time, but the big thing here is, guess what? We have everything we need to get things done, and we get the job done effectively and quickly, and I'm giving back to the community that supports us. I'm giving back our time and my employees' time, depending on what we're doing, to the board and to the WISPA, and that supports our industry. So, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot more people currently on the board, and I'm sure there will be people on the new board that gives more time than we do, or myself as well. I guarantee you that there's a number of people on the board that give definitely more time throughout the year than I do. So, again, this is all up to you. You can effectively do as much or not necessarily as little as possible, but you do have those tasks.
Well, I got another question. On the other boards that I'm on, or have been on, there's the time commitment of obviously the meetings, but before every meeting, I would get sent the agenda from the last meeting, and you have to approve it and make modifications, and then you read the new stuff coming on for that month that happened. What kind of time commitment? And when I would be on this other board, I'd probably spend about a half hour reading the stuff, getting up to speed of what's going to be discussed at the next meeting. Would you guess that's probably about the same kind of time commitment out of the meetings that you do as well? I would assume.
I mean, I'll just use it as an example. On the month, the previous month, so let me just sort by email here and not, I was just going to change my view here. There we go. So in the past 10 days, let's say, for this current month, I mean, I probably got, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 emails that would be directly board work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And a lot of what happens, see, it really depends. There's a lot of things that actually change what you do and what you don't, because whenever we look at the board of directors meets once a month. In many cases, that's more than sufficient. But if there's lots of legislative or lots of FCC actions that we need to address as a board, then it definitely can take longer. But we also do things, and we also complete things on the mailing list as well. So there's always a open line of communication.
Right.
So, you're always looking at them. I definitely have days in which I'm out on site that I don't look at them until the end of the day or until I come back for the week. It does happen. But, that's really up to you. I mean, if that's something that interests you, then you have that ability to follow those things and to, read them as well. But yeah, I mean, basically right before the board meetings, we get all of our reports. We approve the previous meeting minutes. We try to make it, even though we try to stay formal, we still try to make it quick and effective as possible.
Mm-hmm. And another question I have, and I found this really helpful for me as a board member. I was on a board of a homeowners association for 4 years, and every year we would have a new board member orientation. And even though I was there for 4 years, I'd go to that every year, and basically it would inform the new board members and the old board members too of what it means to be on a board and what you do as a board, and like I said, a new board orientation. Is that something that WISPA does for its board members?
Oh yes. As a matter of fact, we actually go even further on that. In the nominations committee, right before we announce the accepted nominations, we will meet with all of the nominees, verify that, yes, they do wish to accept the nomination, and then also kind of go over, here's the next process. Here's what happens through elections, and then we also finish up. If you do get elected, here's what happens. You'll come in on this board meeting, the old board will step out, the new board will take over, and things will continue on. So we definitely have that, and we definitely have the orientation and the communication that occurs both prior to them even being elected, as well as once they are elected and they're transitioning into their new role. There will definitely be that. We also, though, have, again, the staggered terms. So we have a number of people, 5 board members up this year. There will be 4 next year. And because of that, we also, we're not getting this huge turn. It's not like, hey, 9 new people are going to take over and not know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So that's also very important, is that it's not that, yes, we will hopefully get lots of new members, but right now we're looking at, if the current board members that have been renominated are elected, then we only have 3 new board members. If not, that we could have up to 5. But there's still 4 other board members that are guaranteed to be on for the next year. So that, again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not going back to square one and starting back over.
Yeah, and it's set up that way for continuity of the organization.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I mentioned that, even though I had been through those board orientations for 4 years, and every year I learned something. Is that something that the current board does? Do they all participate in that orientation? Yeah.
Usually what happens is the nominees will have an orientation, and then whenever the new board is brought in, the old board members and the new board members are all together. We all talk to each other, and we make that transition as smooth as possible.
Uh-huh.
And that orientation, if you want to call it that, we don't really call it an orientation, but they do have to know how things are done, and that will be communicated during that first board meeting.
Right. Well, for me, being on a board helped me open my eyes up and learn how things are done correctly if you do have a board or if you want to go down that path. So I guess my suggestion is of course, join WISPA, but if you have some time and you would like to better the industry, just like Dennis said, he does it out of, I'm not going to say self-serving interest, but a rising tide raises all boats. So, participating may help you in the long run personally, but that's not the reason you would join this. It's to help the tide for everyone rise.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it is a volunteer organization for the board. The board does not get paid.
Right.
And for me, it helps my industry. my industry is the industry that I pay for my doctor's bills, and it helps me pay for the hospital bills and things like that. So
food on your table.
It puts food on your table. So you have to do that, and by simply putting in a little bit of time, a little bit of everybody said what's it, the pay it forward movement, very similar. The only difference is instead of me paying for someone's lunch that day, I'm doing it on a day in, day out basis by putting in a little time in here or there, sometimes more, sometimes less, into the industry that I have been in for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned about the sister organization. It's strictly autonomous, but it gets support from WISPA, and we're talking about WECAT. Have you been on that board before?
I have not been on the WECAT board at all.
Okay. But they're strictly autonomous, running their own show, but do they have a similar churn or bylaws that have 9 members and go have a churn every?
That's a really great question. Unfortunately, I cannot answer that.
Gotcha.
I do know that the WISP Emergency Communication Action Team, which is what WECAT is, was specifically designed to assist in the repair of wireless broadband infrastructure during times of emergencies. And I know that the board of directors and the bylaws was not necessarily copied by any means, but definitely was influenced. Definitely was influenced by the WISPA organization.
Right.
How's that?
Mm-hmm.
So, is it completely different? No, it's not completely different. But is it very similar? I'm guarantee it's very similar.
Now, you talked about committees, and we know that board members are the chairs of those, and that's how it should be. But if someone wanted to volunteer for a committee membership, is it similar in time commitment that you have as a board member? And basically, as I understand it, committees are designed to shoulder the burden of the board, to offer up advice to the board of what the board should do, and the board at their discretion can act or not act on those that advice. Is that kind of how the committees work? And what kind of time commitment do you see other people that volunteer to be on these committees spend? Is it about similar to what you experience as a board member?
Sure. The committees are a little different with WISPA because there are day-to-day and sometimes weekly actions. It really depends on which committee you're on. I know of many people that do not actively participate in committees. What they want to do is they want to listen in, they want to know what's going on, but they don't really put in a whole lot of information. And that's perfectly fine. As a WISPA member, if you're interested in what the FCC committee is doing and what actions are being taken, and you're not, again, don't have the time to necessarily get in there and put your 2 cents in, but you want to know what's going on, you can become a member of that of the FCC committee, and you can listen in to all the chatter that happens. You can attend the meetings that they have. You can listen in to the mailing list conversation that occurs quite often. Mm-hmm. It's really up to you on how much time you want to put in. If you want to be active and comment and communicate your information and your thoughts to that committee, you can. In the case of like the FCC and legislative and a few other committees, those committees actually have set budgets. And the committee chair is really responsible for authorizing expenditures outside within that budget.
Glad you brought that up.
So the example would be, hey, do we want to spend money here, this item or this item with the FCC? And it really comes down to the chairperson taking a vote of the committee members and then acting upon that. And that's why a lot of the times the committee chairs spend a lot more time than the actual board members because, again, the day-to-day operations, the things that needs to occur quickly, is really more on the actual committee than the board. Now, let's say there is something that comes up that would be outside of the committee. There are times in which the committee can make recommendations to the board, and the board can take those recommendations and either act upon them accordingly or not. But those would be things that would fall outside of what the budgetary item is for.
Right. So within our organization, the FCC and the attorney committee, those are what we would call standing committees, correct? And as needed, you guys would add an ad hoc committee. Is that how the organization kind of runs?
Not really. I mean, those are standing committees. Those committees have been formed and will stay there, until they're not needed. And definitely to my knowledge. And as WISPA members, though, you can join them or unjoin them as you see fit. Your vote counts inside there. So whenever a committee makes a motion to make a vote, your vote would count, and that's up to you. Again, that comes down to do you wish to do more or less?
Yeah.
So, going back to that, there are definitely things that. There are definitely things that that the board members have to do. That has to, that the board members are going to have to vote on, and most of that is more association management. There's an association management committee that works with employees, that works with contractors, things like that, to get things done, and then the committee says, here's what we recommend, and the board can either choose to listen to them or not.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we got a response to one of our questions about WECAT. Garth says, WECAT board member, he's here listening, and yes, they do have bylaws, of course, and the board term is 3 years, and it's staggered with staggered expirations, and they meet about one time per month for about an hour. So if you're interested in looking into that, I think WECAT has its own website that you could volunteer for. I mean, it's a great organization to help out your brothers and sisters in the ISP industry in a disaster or an event that causes you to be harmed.
Well, yeah, and just to give you a little history on it, I don't know exactly when the WECAT was formed, but this all came about back, actually, probably some of the very first ones anyway, was probably Katrina.
Yes.
When Katrina came through, there was a number of WISPs down there that had infrastructure that was hard down. And then you had people at Red Cross shelters and other shelters that had no way to communicate with their families. Not even a phone. The cell phones didn't work. Your cell phones didn't work. You didn't have phone lines, didn't have landlines. And so what happened was there was a good group of people that drove down there. They loaded up their trucks. They loaded up their trailers, tents, RVs, that type of stuff. And they drove down there to help. And actually, one of my partners, Jim Patient, he actually was down there for almost 6 months. That he drove down there, and he stayed in tents, and he stayed wherever someone would put him up. And they would go up on grain silos and whatever they could get on to get digital communication back, and then they'd beam internet down to the Red Cross shelters, and then they would, I believe Vonage even back then donated ATAs and phones so that people could pick up the phone and call their loved ones and call their families to say, hey, we're okay. Later on, there was, I believe, donations of laptops and things like that, so people could get on FEMA's website and other websites to say, hey, insurance, I need you to come down and look at me, or hey, you need to, I need to apply for disaster assistance, things like that. And that's really where it started. That was before WECAT was ever started. But the industry itself, I mean, this industry is so different compared to many others. This industry has people that are going to go and help, and they did. And now they realize, hey, now we have these resources. We have, Vonage donated 100 ATAs with unlimited service. Where do we put that? 100 ATAs, I mean, 100 ATAs, you don't think that's a whole lot, but heck, that's a half a pallet.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of gear. So the gear that is donated, where does that go? Same thing happened at several different locations, and whenever that occurs, who actually divvies it out and says, yes, we need to send this out. And that's what WECAT was formed, is that the WISPs out there have a disaster relief organization that they can call upon in the event of disasters. And some WISPs have said, yes, I need help, and some had said, no, I'm good. So just keep that in mind. There's definitely good and bad with every organization, and I guarantee you that the WECAT system is definitely a really good thing, and it came from what we would expect, which is people helping people.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I've got a question that you may be able to answer, and hopefully Garth could call in and answer this for us. But if you are a member of WISPA, are you a member of WECAT? And if you're not a member of WISPA, can you join WECAT?
That is actually a really good question. I do not believe that there's a membership to join WECAT. We'd have to ask whoever is in charge of WECAT. But I don't have the answer to that. Yeah, Garth, our call-in number, just so you know, 636-707-0074. If you have those answers, hey, we'd like to hear from you. But, I can't answer that. I don't believe that you have to be a member of WISPA or WECAT in those particular instances. The hard part, though, is WECAT kind of follows along with the wireless ISP industry trade group, which would be WISPA, and
right.
In the event of an emergency or disaster, my assumption is most of that communication would occur within WISPA, if you know what I'm saying. Well, hey, we got a call, I think. Let's see. Hello.
Hello, this is Darth Nicholas, currently the treasurer of WECAT.
Hey, there we go. I knew we'd get somebody.
Hey, thanks for being our guinea pig today. We appreciate it.
No, you're welcome.
Excellent. Well, can you answer those questions for us?
I will try. I actually had to turn the radio down so we didn't get feedback. I'm not sure what you said while I was dialing, but the question you asked before I started calling in was membership. And basically, there is no thing people have to join. We are open. We serve the entire wireless ISP community, whether you are a member of WISPA or not. And that actually is a federal requirement as part of getting our 501c3 status, so people can make donations to us that are tax exempt. We cannot limit it to just WISPA members. So, yes, we are open to serve anybody who has a disaster issue.
So, okay, thank you for answering that, Garth. One question is, so say there's a disaster and I have a bunch of old gear that I could deploy and take down there, and I went and did that. Would I get some tax write-off for donating to that cause, above and beyond donating cash to the organization?
Eventually, the answer is yes. Our actual official 501c3 status with the IRS is still pending, so I can't write you a receipt for that if you did that right now today. But eventually, yes, we will have the ability to do that.
Wow.
And yes, we would give receipts for equipment, not just for cash or check donations, once we get that final approval from the IRS. Now, as you well know, that's a division of the IRS that's been, in some mirrored in some political quagmire. So things are a little slow moving with that division of the IRS.
Mm-hmm. And of course, WECAT is all voluntary. And
yes.
You said you answered a question there on the chat. How many board members are on it?
Let's see. Currently, not sure if I'm going to have permission. Well, actually, we have currently we have 7 members.
7, okay. And do you guys solicit the membership people that donate or WISPA for churn? Because churn in any board is good.
Yeah, actually, we have this year elections. We have 2 positions open. Myself as treasurer and Larry Schreiber, our secretary. Our positions are both up for re-election this year. And yes, we are accepting nominations. Our president of WECAT is actually Forbes Mercy, kind of an overlapping board member there. He's also a WISPA member. But I believe if you're interested in running, you can either contact him or Larry Schreiber, our board secretary for WECAT.
Now, another question. At the trade shows, does WECAT set up a booth? WISPA
yes, we have had a table at the WISPA America show in St. Louis, and I believe, I will have to confirm this with Trina, but I believe we also have a booth for the fall show in Vegas as well.
Wonderful. Hopefully that'll drum up interest and support for WECAT.
Yeah, and I believe WISPA tries to help out in that because, it is a sister organization, and the goal is very admirable, and we get them that booth so that hopefully we can get donations and they can handle that both in either cash or in used equipment. You guys are taking used equipment still, right?
We will if there's a disaster and we put out a call for equipment. We don't really have like a warehouse where we can store, like you said, 100 Vonage HEAs that were donated for Katrina. WECAT at this point in time doesn't really have a warehouse, so it's kind of what happens right now. Our processes would be if you're a WISP and you get hit by a tornado or natural disaster, it doesn't have to be a tornado, and you need assistance, you would first contact us, and we would assign one of our coordinators, and depending upon the time of year, it's not one person is the only coordinator. It's kind of whoever has the open time to participate at that given time of year for a given disaster. But one of the board members would actually be the coordinator, and you would contact them for that disaster, and then they will line up. They will do a needs assessment with the ISP who has the storm damage, ask them, what they need. Do they need equipment? Do they need people? Do they need, what are their needs? And then we would put out a call for volunteer, equipment donations, volunteer if they need people. The problem you get in a lot of disasters is you don't want just a bunch of people just getting in their car or truck and driving down and showing up. You actually really have to have it organized ahead of time, because in a lot of cases, the local FEMA or the police or the disaster people won't even let outsiders into the disaster area. So there's a lot of kind of planning and coordination up front before we, send out the volunteers, so to speak.
Right, a coordinated effort.
Yeah, it's definitely changed since, Katrina, because there was a lot of lessons learned in that.
Right.
Is there a membership other than just donating cash? Is there a membership for WECAT? If I donate money, does that make me a member? And do I get information from WECAT?
There's not really a formal membership process. WECAT is open basically to all WISP.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, it's not a membership-based organization. So with WISPA,
we do not require you to join and pay dues every year. We would like you to donate every year, but no, we don't require you to join and pay dues like WISPA does.
Yeah, you need guys need to get that donate now, subscribe button, PayPal button on your website.
Actually, we don't have. That's an old website. Actually, don't use the WECAT.org site. We're in a dispute with the domain holder on that. We're actually putting together a new website at the moment.
Gotcha. When are you planning on having that live?
That should be up here later this summer.
Cool. Fun.
No, a tremendous organization helping each other out.
Gotcha. Well, did you have any other questions for us, or did you like to toss out anything else about WECAT?
No, just it's a good organization. We would more than welcome anybody who wants to get involved, and if you're interested in running for the board, like I said, contact either our secretary, Larry Schreiber, or our president, Forbes Mercy, if you're interested in running for the board.
Well, we appreciate you calling in and being our guinea pig to see if the call-in worked. It sounds like it works like a charm.
Okay.
Have to hand that to
guys
Dennis.
have a good morning.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Yeah, and thanks for listening.
Yep. Bye.
Oh,
So
hey.
a lot of good information gleaned about WECAT and its kind of organization.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I'm just happy that the dang call-in worked. Little things, man, little things. You have to be happy sometimes, right?
No, exactly. That worked out pretty slick.
Yeah. So
You're a guru producer.
hey, well, we try. I got my new mixer too, or my new old mixer. Try that one, but I haven't plugged it in yet. I still got my little one. Anyway, what else do we got on the show for today? We're about out of time, but...
No, that was a great show talking about WISPA and also about what's coming up next week, which is going to be really powerful. And like I said, put on your thinking cap of if, for me, example, I want to just bypass IPv4 and keep the current what I have, but, go to a build out of IPv6. Just keep in the back of your mind of the complications in using it. And, I use all MikroTik for my equipment, backhauling and all that stuff. But that might be a technical question that could be answered that could help further other people with this conundrum. There's no IPv4 left, but they're giving away IPv6 like candy. How do we transition?
Well, I don't know if they're giving it away like candy, but there's definitely a lot more IPs.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'd like to wrap up the show. Dennis, you got anything else?
No, I think we are good. Just to remind everybody before we get off here, just looking at our schedule, you can always go to ispradio.com to get our current schedule. That will also give us any existing things coming up. The big things for our industry. Again, June 17th, 11 a.m. Central, Richard from Aaron is going to be talking about the IPv4 depletion, and that's going to be lots of IPv6 deployments. If you've done a IPv6 deployment and you would like to chit-chat about that, let us know. Hit us up at sales@ispradio.com for that as well. Also, other things that's going to happen. October, this is the the WISPA-palooza. The WISPA-palooza is the biggest industry event that we have in North America. October 10th through the 17th at the Rio Hotel in Las Vegas. Mark your calendars. The registration for that is open. You can now register for that event. We have the agendas are still coming up, things like that, but the big thing is that you can get your hotel room and you can sign up for the show. I highly recommend everybody that is listening, everybody that's going to be listening, everybody that's downloaded, podcast, etc., I highly recommend you going there and going ahead and getting in. Registration early is cheaper. Okay? And what do I mean by that? If you register before July 12th, okay, you get it for, let's see here, the full conference package is $150 cheaper per person.
Wow.
Okay? Register early, save your $150. $150 for me from St. Louis to Vegas is almost all of my plane ticket.
Yeah.
Okay, because they've been running some $72 or $79 specials. That's $180, but $150 savings. That's just one plane ticket, so I can almost fly there for free just by saving how much it is from the full conference pass. You definitely want to do that. There will also be activities before and after.
Trainings.
Trainings, things like that. Make sure you check out the co-located training events page. There's quite a few of them on there so that you can do that. I do know the agenda is, even though it is coming in, it is still not complete and perfect, but it will be. There is a committee. Speaking of which, a committee. There is an agenda committee for these things, and if you would like to see something or offer help with that, you can join that committee, just FYI. So that is definitely a big thing. There is also the Fiber Weekend, which is inside that October 10th through 17th. The main show, let me rephrase this, the main show is the 13th through the 15th, Tuesday through Thursday. Okay, but before that, we have Fiber Weekend, which is part of WISPA-palooza, starting on the 10th. Very, very important. Now, for those of you that don't know, right before WISPA-palooza, October 1st, is the second per-year deadline for your Formal 477. So, just keep that in mind, is that is coming up, and you will have to do it as well. With that said, those are the things I got going on, buddy. I hope to see everybody next week.
Good news. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to go sign up for
the show is open. Sign up.
That's big news. So go sign up, guys. Save yourself $150, like Dennis
a person.
said. That'll get me to Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely lots of fee. The pricing is all in there. I really highly recommend everybody doing the full conference pass. If you are a WISPA member, and this is actually another thing, it's $100. If you're not a WISPA member, you actually pay $100 more for each person. So you get $150 off if you register before July 12th. If you are a WISPA member, you get another $100 off per person. So if you send 2 or 3 people, that might be half of your WISPA membership. Make sense?
And Dennis, just before we wrap up, if some of the folks listening out there have never been to a WISPalooza, you get a lot for that money you send.
Oh yeah. I mean, there is. Okay, so the very first part, there will be there's usually a meet and greet, and this meet and greet is right before. Usually, it's on Monday evening. Everybody's flying in the day before the show usually, and that meet and greet is there is so much information. People you learn information from, so much networking that goes on there. It is insane. That is probably one of the highlights of the event. Then we have all these sessions about every topic imaginable. IPv6, fiber, GPON, you name it, deployment, CLIA compliance, FCC, Title. I guarantee you there's going to be tons of stuff on Title II this year. Lots and lots of information. You can pick and choose which sessions you want to go. And I have found many people that they'll send 2 or 3 people because there'll be some people from the business track that wants to be in the hiring do's and don'ts sessions. But then there's technical people that want to know about OSPF.
Yeah.
So definitely, try to send in. Last year we had over 1,200 attendees. That's how big this show is. It is definitely one of the largest shows. Well, it is the largest show in North America as it pertains to the wireless ISP industry.
And it's been growing every year.
Yeah.
The past 2 years, the food is catered, so that alone was worth it. I don't know if that's the case this year. But,
I do know there's still quite a bit of food. There is since we're at the Rio, I believe it's going to be a little bit more expensive, so I don't think we have as much. But typically, you will always have some type of drinks and some type of food or snack that you can always get for lunchtime. So you don't really have to go out of the hotel and out of the area to go get lunch.
Right.
It's all kind of provided for you. And then there's always sponsored events as well. Almost every night you'll have another reception with an open bar and maybe a little product demo or something like that. And those are always really, really good. And then you also have events, co-located events that happened. Last year, Mimosa had a big, huge event. Ubiquity had a big bowling tournament. Heck, I think they had 30 lanes of bowlers, in their bowling tournament. And there's a really great reason to go. You get to meet all these people that you've worked with before. And on top of all that, you get to talk to all these people that are not only the consultants, not only the vendors, but also industry peers. And that's really probably one of the best things. You will get more information in this one of these events than you will, anytime, anyplace else.
Right, and one of the added benefits is we do our show live from WISPalooza that week, so you could see us doing our thing.
Yeah. We'll find a little home and do a little broadcast and see how that all works out. But definitely great things that's going on. So with that said, I think we're good, Steve.
All right, we'll wrap it up, Dennis. Thanks for listening, folks, and we'll talk to you next week.
To ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packets as fast as you can. Good luck and Godspeed.